Hello, lots to talk about today. Everybody's going to court. Google, Meta, and bust-ups on planes. Welcome to the Internet Seriously, a humorous look at tech, news and politics. I'm Lucian Taylor in Oxford.
I'm Emily Taylor in Oxford.
I'm Nathan in Oxford.
And I'm Katie in Oxford.
And for the first time, we have our Katie Miles from our project management department. Katie, yeah,
Yay.
Welcome. Normally she's behind the camera, but this week we have Alice is off ill after an operation. Good luck getting better, Alice. Katie has nobly stepped in.
You're our resident Gen Zer.
Yeah, not really, you know.
You've got to do youth for
Brilliant.
the whole of the world.
Yeah.
I'm an
Katie
expert.
says she doesn't really do cameras and video, but she is, and she's great. So that's fantastic. Coming up today, Google monopoly verdict, potential for market shake-up and consumer shifts. The FTC versus Meta antitrust trial begins, and the FAA mandates Boeing 737 toilet latch replacements. Thank you. Emily, you're a former lawyer. There are links between all of this. What you're watching is the big courts, the big regulatory bodies, both with Google and Meta and Boeing with their toilets. They're getting heavy.
We're covering
dealing
all
with
the big issues.
I just thought I'd throw the toilets one in there because nobody picked it up last time, and I actually,
it's a very important story.
Yeah, so
it is very much.
Yeah.
I think the Meta and the Google trials have been going on at the same court building at the same time. So I've been
Let's
reading.
just deal with the
those reports,
Meta antitrust trial, which is beginning. The Federal Trade Commissioner has commenced an antitrust trial against Meta, basically saying that they've illegally monopolised the social networking platform by acquiring competitors, Instagram and WhatsApp, and they argue that it was a part of a sort of buy or bury strategy to just kill the competition. Obviously, what we're seeing now is you've got these tech giants that are almost changing the political landscape, and the regulators a few years later are sort of saying, hold on, let's break all of this up. Katie, do you use WhatsApp or Instagram?
Yeah, WhatsApp runs my life. I mean, it runs the company.
Yes,
Yes.
I mean, our own company
Yeah.
it runs it, and it works pretty well, I think.
Definitely. I like that you can have all the different groups and kind of silo everything out.
Yeah,
And do
so
you
Emily,
use Facebook, Katie?
Only if I want to check what my mum's been up to.
this is
There you
annoying.
go.
This is like, thank you.
Can you-
The Hammond organ is
Yeah,
out
I've
with
got-
the old stuff for the old people.
Yeah, so I've got some questions really for you, Katie. But can you think back as far as 2012? And
Just about. Yeah.
Were you on social media at that time?
So I think the age that you should be joining social media is around 13. So it was like just the borderline. It was kind of when it was all getting popular anyway. But I definitely remember that kind of age.
Yeah, and I think in that age, I don't know if you'd agree, Lucy and Nathan, Facebook was really the social media
It was.
platform.
That was where you would go.
And this is the
to
kind of-
share
I think-
cats, dogs, your garden,
Yeah.
talk to old school friends. There was that sort of Friends Reunited or something. I can't even remember what it was called, but it sort of eclipsed that, didn't it?
Everyone would ask, "Oh, can we be friends on Facebook?" But I remember there was, some quite. Looking back at it now, there was some quite interesting functionality of Facebook that probably wouldn't. Well, it's probably gone now, but you could check into places and tell everyone, I am here right now. I'm no longer at my house. So
It's kind of crazy.
So, but
thinking about
where
it,
are
isn't
we
it?
now? Because, I think clearly Facebook has diluted. It's become, I think of it as where I go if I want to find out what old friends are doing. It's clearly not the winner anymore. So Emily, who is the Federal Trade Commissioner, and why do they think that given that you've got this demise of Facebook and they've moved into other areas like WhatsApp and Instagram, why are they dominant? Is that three, or is that actually them being smart and replacing the fading old ones with new ones?
Well, this is actually the core question. So backing up, who is the Federal Trade Commission. In the United States, they are the people who look after antitrust, which is the US version of what we would call in Europe competition law.
So if you're a big company,
you're to protect consumers against the monopolies and the excesses of monopolies.
Does it matter?
It matters a lot, because actually part of the definition of a monopoly is a company that is able to operate completely independently of market and competition forces. So in European terms, which is a regime I'm much more familiar with, it's about being in a dominant position. It's where you can act independently of the market, and it's not as easy a threshold as you would think to show that Meta has a monopoly, because there's the situation in 2012 when we just had a little go back in time between us, where Facebook really was the social network. But there's the situation now. Where are you evaluating it? And one of the key arguments that Meta is actually applying is, look at TikTok. Look at how rapidly it's grown, how it really has posed a very competitive threat to us. So we're not a monopoly.
Yes, just to be clear, they are vigorously defending themselves against the Federal Trade Commission.
They absolutely
and they're arguing that TikTok and YouTube, and we'll come on to Google in a minute, and basically they're saying that you're just punishing a successful company.
So my feeling is, I really don't know which way this verdict is going to go, but it's a very interesting set of issues, because if we think about, if we thought even amongst ourselves, what are the character of different social media platforms that we use in our business or personal life? What would you post on TikTok? Would you post the same material on LinkedIn? Would you expect the same audience on YouTube? Would you expect the same audience on Facebook? So actually Facebook's case, to the extent I understand it, is these are all direct competitors to one another. They pose competitive threats to us. We need to react. And the Federal Trade Commission's case would be no, you have a monopoly in social media. So I think this is going to be a very, very interesting trial to watch.
Yeah, I've got one more question for Nathan, but before that, guys, I do want to remind everyone to please, if you like this, please follow and share, or subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts as well, because we need you, and the buttons are just on the screen now. Sorry for forgetting that, guys, just got so excited in this argument. But anyway, Nathan, we are the primary goal is to secure a court order that would make Meta actually have to sell WhatsApp and Instagram to other providers. I know, because we swap messages, text sort of messages. Yeah. We're using WhatsApp every 5 minutes. Yeah. Where could this lead us?
I think it's a really interesting, problem. I think there's a lot of different ways it could go. I think going back to Emily's point, I feel like there's so much competition out there that it would be hard to kind of say that one's got a win over the other, because you've got your likes of Snapchat and your TikToks and your your other kind of messaging platforms. You've got iMessage on, that kind of takes away some of the WhatsApp things. So, I think it's really interesting, and I don't know how it's going to go. But
yeah, thank you very much. So, Emily, did you have a last point wanted to make there?
I think there's the legal issues, and then there's, frankly, the theatre of the whole thing. It's very exciting that Mark Zuckerberg is giving evidence in person, but also there's the kind of the drama of the founder of Instagram, who's been giving testimony this week, Kevin Systrom, who is alleging, look, we reached 1 billion users at Instagram with 100 staff versus Facebook's 35,000. And so this is the buy or bury argument that you started with, Lucian. So the testimony from the Instagram founder is, we got acquired by Facebook. Facebook starved us of resources. Facebook vigorously rejects that argument, says, actually, we made Instagram. We took it from a couple of, 2 or 3 users. It was doing very well, but it's now went over. Hyperbole, went over 1 billion users. So it was probably using a lot of those resources. So there's a real kind of courtroom drama, and those personalities who are so intriguing, this sort of opening up of a very closed world.
Yeah. So I want to go. These are super giant companies. They affect every 5 minutes of our lives, which is why I want to go from a court case that's launched and just started into one that's complete, at least in its first round, and to talk about Google. Before I do that, because this is all super exciting, it's time for our guilty pleasure online. Katie Miles been up here today. You are in the chair. What is your guilty pleasure online?
I actually struggled to think what my guilty pleasure online is, because I think as a generation, we're a generation online, and it's something that I try and reduce as much as possible, especially because with work we're online all the time basically. But we were having a chat before coming in, and I think I'm going to go with videos of people making jacket potatoes.
Oh God, this is great.
Yeah.
Oh, this is really great.
Are there lots of them?
Yeah, so there was like this one main one, I think they're called the Spud Bros, and they have like a food trailer, and they wear a GoPro on their head, and then you're just watching them making jacket potatoes for people. But now there's so many different people.
Okay,
doing
I'm
these videos.
gonna come to that, because that's a really important topic. That Emily, jacket potatoes. This is in our household. It's quite a revived thing.
Jacket potatoes are delicious, and sometimes you forget they exist.
Yeah.
And you're like, what do we have tonight? Pasta, curry, blah blah blah. Jacket potato.
If you get them right, they're a kind of big chip. If you cook them properly on the outside with plenty of oil and salt and pepper and stuff.
Oh yes,
lovely.
that's lovely.
Oh God. and on the inside, they're kind of mashed. Nathan, do you remember Spud You Like?
I do remember Spud You Like. Yeah,
Spud
I do.
You Like was an amazing green and beige kind of front, and you'd go in, and it was always a jacket potato. Do you remember, in a polystyrene box? And you got to pick a topper that you liked, and cheese and butter on top.
It's all about the butter. It's all about the cheese.
You kind of mash it down.
Start off with a layer of butter and cheese, and then you just go nuts with everything else.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to it, but Katie, we got so
questions.
excited about this. Emily first. I've got hands up. I can do the queue.
Okay, I want to be in the queue for Katie and the jacket potatoes. So, do the people making the jacket potato videos, do they start them in the microwave and finish them in the oven? Or
No.
What
They
about
have
what's
these
the crispy skin
They
secret?
have like a jacket potato oven that has about 15 different shelves, and each jacket potato is wrapped in tin foil. And then they seem to do, you don't just get one jacket potato,
It's like
you
one
get
and a
one
half,
and a
isn't it?
half
Yeah.
jacket potatoes.
Oh my God.
So they have like three.
So they
like
cut
three
them
bits,
open and open it up and then mash it all together.
But doesn't the tin foil make the skin soggy?
No, they're so crispy.
Okay, there's the technical cooking.
I need to watch
but
this.
okay, now the filling.
Well, they have so many different options.
Do they have beans?
Yes.
Do they have chili con carne? Do they have chicken curry?
Yeah.
Do they have 2 types of cheeses?
Well, some of them have 3 types of cheeses.
3 types of
A
cheeses.
blend of cheese.
Right,
Yeah.
butter,
Yeah.
margarine.
Garlic butter sometimes.
I'm
crispy
being,
onions.
Okay,
Yeah.
is there any...
salad.
No.
Ah! No.
Coleslaw sometimes.
Oh, coleslaw,
Okay.
yes,
Yeah.
very nice.
Okay.
So is there any new recipes that you've like gone, I would never think of doing that with a jacket potato?
One thing I have learned is put the cheese on first.
Oh.
Cheese, then the beans, because the hot potato, the cheese gets all melted in the middle.
This is crazy. Art department, I haven't seen any potatoes. I don't understand what's going
Some
on.
AI
I'll tell you what,
potatoes,
Mrs. Potato Head, I'll give you that one, and you can get busy, get working, maybe later on. Okay, back to, much more boring subject than jacket potatoes. But Google, there's a monopoly verdict. I can't remember who actually raised this case. Federal Trade Commission as well. But basically the judge ruled that Google illegally maintained a monopoly in general search services and search text advertising, and they're now in the remedies, what's called the remedies phase, where they're thinking about what to do, and that could be to break up Google's search engine or have to sell off things like Chrome and basically break up the company. Obviously, Google is expecting to formally file an appeal against this. What they're saying is increased competition looms, and a legal defeat for Google could dismantle its grip on search and related markets.
I don't know. I use Yahoo all the time.
Yes, and Bing is
Bing, yeah, I mean,
has anyone said these sentences before?
No.
Ask Jeeves. No.
Jeez, oh
Jeeves.
gosh, that's a throwback.
I mean,
Yeah.
where they're all looking at is what they call default search agreements.
Yeah.
Okay, so where the search engine is, where Google is paying manufacturers like Samsung and others to pre-install and set Google as the default search engine, or pre-install things like Google Play Store, the Chrome browser and stuff on Android devices. And they're basically saying that's just baking it in and giving Google a huge advantage because of inertia.
Yeah.
As an engineer, this thing about consumer inertia, what does that mean, Nathan?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people aren't going to know that they have Google set by default, unless you're being prompted at the point where you set up a device or, your laptop or whatever it is, unless you're being prompted to pick something, it's going to be Google and you're just going to carry on using it. I think.
So you as an engineer, you do a lot of UX, UI, you know that it's all about just making it easy.
Correct, it's about making it easy, but it's, I think nowadays you also have to make things transparent, and you have to make people aware as to what they're using and why they might be using it and why they've chosen that.
Yeah, Katie, is there any alternative search engine? Really, I could hear I could hear it in your tone. I mean, is there any other search engine?
I would never go anywhere else.
I have a question for you, Emily. Where, we talked about Meta and we're talking about Google now, search engine, social media. Where is Europe? Where are our genius developers? Why don't we, China can do, we can see the grip that everyone's got on the politics, on the thinking. We can see the grip that everyone's got on the personal data. China just invents TikTok. We never heard of it 5 years ago. Where's Europe or the UK?
Well, so I think one of the anxieties within the European Union is often, what about innovation? So you tend to get a sort of approach of, yes, innovation is important and we must pass more regulations to make innovation happen. And actually the US environment is much more innovation friendly. They've got really sort of permissive employment rules where you can just hire and fire really, really easily. You can grow really easily. And the last 20 years in the United States has been characterized by very hands-off regulation.
Yes.
The Trump administration, remember again the theatre of all of those tech owners lined up on the first row at the inauguration. Trump administration is going to be very much a deregulation administration, tech friendly. So where does this leave the European regulators? Well, of course, all of these products are available in Europe, and some of the biggest competition cases have historically been brought by the European competition authorities. I mean, we've been here before on search. We've been here before on embedding browsers in devices, and that was back in the day of Microsoft and the whole Netscape argument, and it sort of really illustrates that the same practices come around. The power of inertia, the power of the default setting, because that really does help to corner the market. And at the same time, who's using Netscape now? What happened to Netscape? It can be devastating for new market entrants. I do think though, the remedies in Europe and the remedies in the US are different. So the remedies in the US, if there's a monopoly, is to break them up. And you see that over the last few years, regardless of any decisions, both Google and Facebook have organised their company structures differently, almost as if they are preparing for whatever moment it might be.
So let's imagine that they break up and it's sold. Who's going to buy it? I hear that ChatGPT, the makers of OpenAI, are very interested in buying Chrome. Because let's face it, when they say break up, they mean it's to sell. So we would all still be using Google Chrome. And yet we're seeing anyway more and more, aren't we, Nathan? more AI anyway in
absolutely.
the search engine itself.
Yeah, and I wonder if, if you think about when you ask someone a question, normally you say, oh, we'll just Google it.
Yes.
Now it's kind of changing to, well, ask chat, ask your, AI chatbot. And so I think there is a natural decline in your traditional kind of Google searching, moving toward more asking AI.
Yeah, and Katie,
questions
when
and
you
things.
do a Google search, we're getting more and more now the sort of AI bit at the top. Is that working for you?
When it first came in, I would purposefully scroll past. I was like, I don't want this AI thrusted upon me.
Right.
I will choose my own one.
Yeah.
It's the same way when I see the top answers on Google being a sponsored post. I will refuse to click those links and go down to the ones below. But I do think you have an interesting point with it shifting over to asking chat, because it is becoming more and more. I'm like, oh, if there's something that I'm wanting a very specific answer to, I'll just go and ask ChatGPT.
I agree.
I think in a few years' time, we're going to get to this same point where, AI chats will be like Apple have embedded OpenAI. We're going to get to this same point where there's a monopoly, and users are going to have to choose and pick which AI they want embedded on their device, rather than the manufacturers, deciding for you.
And it also highlights, doesn't it, how slow the legal process is compared to the market. So we're now at the point, I was going to ask exactly the same question, Lucian. Like, I think search habits are changing, and in the Meta case, this is about an acquisition that happened 13 years ago. So the courts grind slowly, and the tech markets are so dynamic. So I agree with you. I was like, I am not going to use AI for search. Now I'm having whole conversations with Google Gemini, like, tell me more about. And it's much more conversational. It's much more of a natural dialogue.
We're moving towards Space Odyssey, aren't we? And HAL, and just talking to the air and getting our search results, or even them predicting the search results. I know that you're about to ask me this because you're making a jacket potato. Yeah. And I recommend today, based upon what you ate yesterday, that you have the tuna topping. Yep. Anyway, from the FTT to the FAA, from the Federal Trade Commission to the Federal Aviation Commission, but the Federal Aviation Administration. But before that, it's time for our Tech Room 101. And there we have Katie with a jacket potato, which the guys got super excited and lined that up and missed the lovely music for the Tech Room 101. Room 101. Nathan Allen, what is your Tech Room 101? What techie thing would you like to throw in the bin of life or lock in that cell forever?
Okay, so I was struggling with this morning, and then I realised there was something that I want to chuck away. And that is, and you'll be interested to hear this, it is a piece of tech on the new Audi.
Oh no!
Already?
You have bought it.
Yes,
Already?
I know.
Sorry, this
I
is
knew this
green.
would get
This is me
Oh,
green
no.
with envy,
Yeah, no, I know.
and Nathan boasting and proud about his new Audi. And I know he's going to trash this sort of bit. There's Nathan celebrating his new Audi, and jealous Lucian next to him. But I'm really interested. And so this is not an excuse for you to talk about your Audi
Not
on
at
the
all.
podcast.
I very rarely talk about it in the office. I don't think anyone's really realised I've got a new car. No, I think it's pretty low key. Anyway, I would like to chuck away, or at least turn off forever, lane assist.
Oh.
Can you not turn it off?
You can, but as soon as you turn the car off and on again, it re-puts itself on.
So you need...
Why?
And it's
Why
quite frustrating because if you're, even if you're, just slightly, the steering wheel's jerking you back into the centre, and with the Audi, it's got augmented reality, so it paints red lines on the road, and it's just...
Katie, do you have lane assist on your car?
On my Ford Fiesta from 2013, I do actually. Yeah.
It's called Katie, and you steer over the line and then you steer back again.
Yeah.
Isn't that part of driving style, Nathan? To kind of stylishly drift into the inner lane when you've finished overtaking, and then it's like cramping your style, pulling you back in.
It's so patronising. It thinks I'm always going to be crashing.
Well, we also have roadworks near us, and so you are forced to drive.
And it's like trying to get me
to
come on,
pulling you back. So
I don't appreciate.
Yeah,
more tech is not always better.
I don't know how I feel about that, because I'm somebody who actually likes lane assist to remind me to stay in the lane when I'm daydreaming in the car. But
it was useful when I was driving home at 2 a.m. in the morning after a long flight.
Oh my gosh.
Where I needed it to keep us alive. But other than that, I feel like
talking of long flights,
yes,
there's a nice bridge into this. This is a story that I'm hanging on to because it's fun. The Federal Aviation Commission has proposed a rule requiring US airlines to replace faulty bathroom door latches. This is after a defective plastic door latch was flawed and left a passenger stuck in the loo of the plane. And what they had to do, and basically Boeing, the 737 provider, is having to spend a huge price, $1,300 per plane for 2 door latches.
That's an expensive latch.
Totaling $3.4 million for the US airlines to replace these fiddly little plastic things in the door. Now, what I didn't know was that if a passenger is stuck in a loo of a plane, they have to land the plane as quickly as possible. Why do you think that is, Katie? I know you've got family who used to work in the airline industry.
Maybe they're going to blow the plane up.
Right, thank you. That's one idea. Quite
Very good.
Quite simply, they have to guarantee passenger safety in turbulence, and there are no seat belts in turbulence. And actually, you could have a big injury if you're stuck in a loo. And let's not think too graphically about this, but you could suffer a big injury if you were in a turbulent situation and you couldn't get out of there. So they treat it as an emergency, and they land the plane.
Yes, and quite right too. I always remember your Uncle Shane, who was a larger than life character and a very frequent traveller.
Pan Am, he used to fly on Pan Am to Japan all the time.
Back in the day.
Yeah.
And he was a larger character, and so those, if
He
you
was
think
huge.
how cramped airline toilets are. He had a very bad experience where he was enthroned, let's say, and the 4 walls of the the 2 walls of the airline toilet just disintegrated and went boom, boom, and
he was left facing a first-class passenger because he was up the front of the plane, and he said, "We must meet again sometime." But yeah,
drinks for everyone.
But this thing about planes landing when something's. You guys were on a plane coming back from a conference. What was that conference? It's one that we
were at the 25th anniversary for the UDRP at WIPO in Geneva.
What's the UDRP?
The UDRP is the Uniform Domain Name Dispute Resolution process, which was implemented 25 years ago to resolve conflicts between domain names and trademarks.
Where was this conference?
Geneva.
Short flight.
Or
should be
about
fine.
About an hour and 15 minutes.
Yeah.
What could possibly go wrong?
What could possibly go wrong?
Nothing.
So the loos, were they all right?
Yeah.
Anyone
trapped in the loo?
So. No one trapped in the loo.
So what happened?
Someone decided that it was a really good idea to start having a fight at the back of the plane.
Ooh.
Yes.
Now you were towards the front of the plane.
Did you
Somewhere
see
in the
anything?
middle.
We're in the middle.
Did you hear it?
I didn't hear anything,
No,
actually.
I
Did you
had
hear
They're
headphones
quite
on.
loud. They're quite loud planes.
They're quite
aren't
loud.
they? So,
I had noise cancelling headphones on, watching a TV program. Katie's
so if
reading
somebody's
a book,
20 rows back, they're like, "No, you bloody."
So was it like argument fighting or
Well, I think that it
fight club?
progressed into a physical
into
fight.
some physical fights.
Ooh.
Yes.
Because
Now that's annoying.
very annoying, because the pilot came on the tannoy and said, "Oh, there's been a medical emergency, so we're having to reroute to Paris."
Oh.
And at this point,
This
we were
must have
probably
been
about
quite
halfway
soon. Oh, I see.
through the flight.
Annoying.
Yeah.
So they diverted us to Paris.
Did it take long to land?
About 15-20 minutes to land.
Yeah,
Then
right.
we
It
were
wasn't that long.
taxiing for ages.
Right.
And when the plane finally stopped, 5 massive French police officers walked onto
Wow.
the plane.
And we
Really?
thought, this might not be a medical
Maybe
emergency.
not medical
Wow, that's not
emergency.
normally the response, is it?
No.
Wow.
No.
And were people dragged off the plane then?
No, they weren't. They
They
kicking
just
and
seemed to come of their
screaming,
own
but they
accord,
just
didn't they?
walked off.
Yeah.
But it was a man and a woman, and
Ooh.
the man was holding his head, and his sleeve was covered in blood.
Right.
Wow.
So basically, it looks like a couple's
Maybe a
serious biff up between a
serious
couple. But it inconvenienced all the passengers. And again, I'm just fascinated by systems on the internet, seriously. And this is a whole part of a whole system. Basically, they cannot guarantee the safety of the passengers for the duration of the flight, and so they're landing early.
They had to land early. And what I thought, okay, this is fine. There can't really be, we're going to be delayed an hour and a half, couple of hours at the most. What else could possibly go wrong? Well, Heathrow closes.
Oh no, does it?
Yes. So
I suppose I'm never awake normally, but yeah, I have.
The runway closes.
What time does the runway close?
I think it must have been about 11 o'clock.
About 10 minutes after we were meant to be landing.
Oh, did you make it?
No. Not to Heathrow.
Oh,
where did you get to?
So we had to go to Gatwick.
No.
Because everybody loves Gatwick.
They keep Gatwick open.
Gatwick's 24 hours. So you can always guarantee a landing at Gatwick.
But then you have to have a slot.
Yeah,
because I have been circling around Heathrow from a long haul at 5 to 5. I believe they can land the first plane at 5 in the morning.
They open very early, but it seems they close early.
They close. Must have been about 11 o'clock.
Does that mean, how did you get from Gatwick to your car?
So car was in Heathrow, landed at Gatwick, and then we had a bus put on.
The bus of death.
Bus of death.
An hour.
So to put timelines in perspective, we should have landed in Heathrow about 10 p.m. UK time. We landed in Gatwick about
1 a.m.
1 a.m. And then we had to get a bus from Gatwick at about 1:30 in the morning.
By the time the bus actually
left
arrived.
about 1:30 in the morning.
Now, presumably, if you were obsessed, you would try and sue these people, but it would have to be in French court because the crime or the losses to you occurred over France.
Yeah, we were talking about this. What happens if a crime is committed on a plane? What jurisdiction is that in?
Yeah, where does
I think you're in international airspace.
Yeah.
Or maybe you
is it
are
where you
in
land?
the jurisdiction of where you land, because talking to police who've gone to apprehend criminals, they get them on the plane, wait for the doors to close, and then sit on them and arrest them. Because that's the point where they are, because they have no jurisdiction to arrest people in somebody else's country. So I think it must be where you land.
These fascinating systems.
Let's make up law.
More and more about it. There is something I'm very interested in. As an analyst, is that I once studied the airline industry as a way, and they have completely different levels of communication between engineers across the different airline companies and the marketing department, and they're completely separated. And it's something I think that the internet could learn from, is allowing engineers to communicate bilaterally around internet safety. Like the airline industry. So if you're working in Russia, or if you're working for Virgin Atlantic, and you're also working in British Airways, if you find a fault in a plane, you are allowed to share it with each other, share that information. Fascinating system, the airline industry, and we've got a lot to learn from them. Thanks very much. We're out of time today. Today we've been talking about the Google monopoly verdict and the potential for market shake-ups there, the new FTC Meta antitrust trial beginning, and also a bit about fun with Boeing 737 toilets. Do we have a comment of the week before we finally sign off?
We do. We have a comment of the week from, and I'm sorry, I'm going to mispronounce your name, Disjonmujin, I think.
Thank you, Disjonmujin.
So you'll remember last week we had a wonderful guest, Tantacruel, Martin Keary, who has an expertise in UX and UI. And there is a real fellow feeling comment here saying he's used Illustrator for over a decade, and the decision, you can see how frustrated this commenter is about the decisions on how its snapping works and how it's driving him insane. And it finishes in all caps, so the guy's obviously lost it, the guy or person, but it won't actually snap. Why is the snapping UI element showing up if it's not actually snapping? We feel your pain. Thank you very much for your comment. Yeah, there's lots of other competition for the the comment of the week. Alice from her sickbed has said, "I can't believe this comment lost out to the Tantacruel comment." Alice, We are grateful for all the comments. Thank you so much for commenting and engaging. We really, really appreciate it. And we'll come to the tentacle comment another time.
Thank you very much, everyone. The internet's seriously a sanctuary for your tech pain. See you next week.